Jibran Eubanks, welcome.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for for agreeing to spend some time with us. I attended a couple of webinars or gatherings, virtual gatherings for the Long-Term Care Coalition. That's where I heard you speak about. I think it was some kind of an event that was exciting. And then the passion that you showed and sort of you're focused on giving us the details about that event and so on. I said I need to talk to this guy. I need to
Yeah,
find out more because the movers and shakers and doers and people who actually go and do things is not a commodity. I just That's
yeah.
what I found out, right? A
Absolutely.
lot of
Absolutely.
talkers, a lot of complainers, a
Yeah.
lot of people who analyze things, and a lot of people who tell you how it is, but the doers, right?
You got to get out there.
I'm always looking for the doers because those are the folks who make things happen. Um,
Absolutely.
so I mean, you're doing a lot of things. I want to start with your work at the union SEIU 1199, right?
Correct. Yep.
One
Yep.
of
Yes, sir. 1199 SEIU. Yep.
That's a large union, I believe.
Yeah, it is it's the largest healthcare union on the East Coast. So we represent over 10,000 members here in Maryland and DC.
Mhm.
We are a healthcare organization, but we're also such a social justice organization. So I work in the political department. We're a small group, but we're fierce. And we do, I like to say what our admin organizers do inside of the shops to make sure you have, fair working conditions, increased wages. They do the collective bargaining, the grievances. I help you outside of the shop. So we work on housing, environmental causes, and a number of different issues to make sure that, anything that you're worried about outside of work, we try to make sure that we're staying on top of that as well.
Okay. Well, give me a couple of issues you guys are advocating for.
Yeah, right now in DC, there are a few key things, right? Um, Number one is safe staffing. We understand that we have a staffing shortage in the long-term care force. And what that looks like is, when you have a shortage of workers in a nursing home, you're not the patients and the residents aren't receiving high quality care, right? You're having workers who are burnt out. They're taking care of up to 30 patients at a time, which is just insane. And we're seeing, and it's causing, physical ailments to the patients. So the patient may have bed sores because they haven't been turned over in a certain amount of time. And then you may have a family member comes in, they're like, well, why is my family member in these conditions? And it's because the worker's burnt out and they've been running around trying to take care of, 30 patients at a time, which
Yeah.
just isn't possible, right? So, we really want to focus on staffing ratios, right? So we call safe staffing to ensure that there are enough workers per patients and residents in these facilities.
Yeah.
Next, we work on wages, right? People don't want to work if they aren't being paid properly. This isn't an easy job, right? The things that these workers have to go through mentally, physically, and financially is just unfair. It's thankless work. They come in, they do their job. If somebody calls out, they may have to work extra hours. And the things that some of these folks are dealing with the patients, whether they're being physically assault, we're seeing more workplace violence in nursing homes and hospitals as well. And it's all because, like I said initially, safe staffing, and folks don't want to do the work because they're not being paid enough. In DC, you can make more as a dog walker than a nurse, and that's just insane. So, we have to make sure that we're paying these workers how they should be paid, livable wages, to ensure that they can take care of their family and that they can provide the critical care that's needed to patients and residents. So I'll say those are the two key issues. We're working on a lot of legislative things as well, like very particular bills and budget initiatives as well. But I would say those are the two key issues that we're focusing on and have our high priority things for us right now.
Okay. Um, and so give me the kinds of things you would do. Let's say let's talk about wages, right? What kind of like give me an actual like do you What do you do? Would you talk to your congressperson, or what do you do? Raise more money from HUD? What kind of actions does that translate to?
Yeah, if we want to fix it at, there's a number of different approaches, right? The first approach is what our admin organizers do contractually, right? They sit in front of the management, they go through collective bargaining, and they bargain for higher wages. They negotiate for higher wages. That's only shop by shop basis, right? That isn't going to take care of the entire workforce. When we look at fixes to the entire workforce, we start locally first. So something that, one of my first campaigns that I worked on when I started with the union around 3 years ago, was increasing living wages through what then was called the Certified Nurse and Aide Amendment Act. So what that would do, it would establish a living wage for direct care professionals at 120% above the district's living wage. So if the living wage was, $18, direct care professionals will be paid 120% of that number. We worked on that for years, and we finally got it introduced and passed. Now, unfortunately, in DC, the problem is sometimes things just become a piece of paper. And if they don't have the proper funding, they'll say, yes, we're passing this amendment. Mind you, the amendment does a number of different things, right? It establishes credentials for home health aides and CNAs to be under one direct professional care. So you don't have to renew your certification on both. So if you're a CNA and you're HHA, you used to have to renew your certification 2 times. You had to do it through your CNA and HHA. We combine those so that you don't have to do that. We also made it where that Maryland, and if you're certified in Maryland or Virginia, you can work in DC. Before that wasn't a thing. So we're able to bring in workers from Maryland and Virginia to come in and work in DC. But the main part of the bill was to increase wages, right? And that's something that, although the bill got passed, it hasn't been funded. So now we have to go in front of the council, and that's where the advocacy comes in, right? That's where coalitions come in. That's where DC Long-Term Care Coalition comes in, where we work with different organizations and we find champions, right? Within the council that are going to say, hey, we need to find this money, right? We need to, we need to figure out how we can fund this initiative because it's important. And we see that this is a critical issue and in a billions dollar budget, any, a small fiscal impact of what's being asked, we should be able to do that. So it's a lot more challenging than it sounds. Of course, we understand the climate that we're in right now. We understand the deficits that DC faces in the DC budget. But we need to look at revenue raisers, right? We need to look at different committees that may not need the funding that they have, that can shift some funding over to the Committee of Health and make sure that that those folks have the funds. And of course, now with cuts to Medicaid, we're facing even tougher issues. So we weren't able to find those funds this year. It'll probably be a long shot next year as well. But at the end of the day, that we don't just wash our hands with it. This is still a critical issue. We have to make sure that these people are being paid properly.
Yeah, yeah. I was talking to Neil Richardson yesterday. We had an hour conversation. He is the coordinator, right, for the long-term, the DC long.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very, very nice guy. And
Yes, for
so
sure.
and so so we talked and talked, and then it basically comes down to the money, right?
Yeah.
We need to get more money. We need to get more money, and the rest of it will take care of itself, right? And so no, it doesn't take care of itself, obviously. One has to do all kinds of things, but once you have the money, the rest of it is just a matter of work, really, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that that sort of we got to brainstorming together is um, well, the DC area, right, is not like, I don't know, Oklahoma City or, somewhere in Nebraska or whatever. And you have like Amazon's HQ is in Virginia. You have Raytheon is here. You have Google is here. You have all these organizations who are swimming in oceans of cash, right? And then somehow they manage not to pay taxes and so on. But so the sort of the thing that we said, well, let's brainstorm some more about it is Well, let's go and sort of ask for money from these, these, these greedy, people who have a bottomless need for more cash, right? But they have oceans of cash. Anyway, the point really is, I think there's an opportunity here, I believe, for us to think beyond, asking money from the government, right? We ask for money from the government. That's how it should work. Maybe in this crisis, we can say, well, let's add to our portfolio of activities, getting the money that is here, sitting here, right? Contribute to your community. And that's why I was telling you before we started recording that we have a crisis right
Mm,
now, that people, everybody now, it's in their head. There is a crisis. Something is going on. The National Guard is out there creating, ICE is out there. It's sort of a crisis, right? And so, therefore, everybody should step forward to help, manage our transition to hopefully at some point normalcy, right? Let's hope, right?
mm.
At some point we'll get to back to some kind of normalcy or better than normalcy. Because normalcy, I think, the status quo before this was not really good. Anyway, and that's why I'm a big believer in, it's a crisis. Let's go ahead and take advantage, in the sense, let's go ahead and mobilize people. And then the thing is, last thing I'll say, and then I'll pass back the mic to you, is this region, Northern Virginia, and then the whole DC area and Maryland, right, is very liberal, right? They have a social conscience and so on, and very affluent. So how can we get hold of that money, right? Because we were doing the math yesterday, and something like $35 million is all they really need to really finance, the social workers and all the folks who are on the front line, give them something that is, that isn't beyond simply being able to live, being able to settle, right? Being able to just calm down, do the good work, attract the right talent, right? Staff properly, so you don't have one person taking care of 30, you have four people. Imagine that. Imagine a place where you have plenty of staff, right?
Yeah.
Happy, they look forward
Ideal world.
on Sunday night. They're looking forward to the day Monday. They're not like getting drunk so that they can forget their for the next day,
Mm,
right? Imagine that world. That world is not very far away if we think about the money and the fact that we are the money, which is $38 million, something like that. We did the math, and the fact that we're living in such an affluent place, and the fact that the folks here are, when they vote, Fairfax County, at least in Virginia, just is basically Virginia, right? When we
mm.
wait for the vote coming in from North Virginia to say whether we're gonna go blue or red. Anyway, so I'll give you the mic back. But those two parameters, like going beyond the box and the fact that we have wealth here, can we tap into that? Do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if Amazon wants to sponsor healthcare workers and and send over some of their millions, I'm sure we will take it. But I mean, we see how the money is distributed, right? We see the wealth disparity, the racial wealth gap in DC, as affluent as it is.
Yeah.
We see the middle age or middle class families, white families making almost 60,000 more dollars than the middle class black family. So we see how the wealth is distributed. What's frustrating for me is that the DC has the money, right? They'll pretend that it's not there. They have the money and they have opportunity to raise money. When you tell me you don't have money for workers, but you can send $1 billion to create a new stadium in DC. You don't have money for emergency rental assistance, yet you also don't want to, increase property taxes increase the mansion tax for homes that are 2.5 million or above are paying the same taxes as some of these other homes. You don't have money to home or to find shelter for the homeless, yet you're putting $500 million into the MPD police department. So to me, it's the way the money is being distributed, right? That's the most frustrating part. It's not that it's a heavy ask, it's not a big burden. They've spent, the council tends to, and this is, I have friends on the council, but they tend to spend money how they perceive is important. Um,
Let
and
me
right
ask.
now, healthcare workers aren't on the highest of their priority list.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure that we are advocating for these workers and that we're making sure that, like you said, they're understanding the crisis because a lot of them don't. And there are, like I said, there are a lot of progressive folks on the council who we work very well with and alongside. But when we look at the mayor's budget that was initially proposed, it was a smack in the face to working class families. And we have to make sure that, we are the voices and we have a platform and that we are heard. Because something that we had spoke to earlier, we look at food deserts, right? Health is goes a long way. It's a spectrum, right? If you can't find the nearest grocery store is 5 miles from you, and transit is a mess where you live, and your grocery store is 7-Eleven, that trickles down to health issues, right? Now you visit the doctor more. If you don't have insurance, now you're at the hospital uninsured. Now you're in medical debt. Now, like, right? So this is a trickle down effect. And again, it's systematic. So we have to ensure that the people that we're voting into office are making sure that they're paying attention and taking care of their constituents.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Then my next question would be, so the council, tell me about the council. How many people are in the council? How do they get voted in, I guess, and what's the length of their term, and what is the composition, to the extent that you know, of the council today in terms of minority, in terms of, are they all affluent, upper middle class? What kind of folks are they? But just the basics. Give me the basics about the council, the DC council.
Yeah, so there are 8 wards. So there's a council member for each ward. There are 3 at-large council members, and then the chairman, Phil Mendelson. It's a very diverse group. Again, for the most part, very progressive group. We do have some allies who we work well with. Especially, Council Member Christina Henderson out of the Committee of Health. She introduced that direct care worker amendment bill that we have been working on for years. We work very well with her and her staff in her office. There's a bill that she's going to introduce that we're going to be supportive of, and we're looking to push forward as far as medical debt and looking at uncompensated care for hospitals who are, some bad actors who are not meeting that threshold. We understand that with these slashes to DC Alliance is going to be eliminated in 2027. That's something that we're pushing back on. And we're having conversations. We talked to staff and council member. We have a lobby day on the 22nd where we'll be going up to the council office and sharing stories from members and from workers who rely on DC Alliance Healthcare and need that coverage to be healthy. So there's a broad number of folks. Again, we have some champions in there who and we're very much involved in the electoral process, especially me being in the political department. So, from the endorsement process, and we're not the type to, when campaign season rolls around, we don't just, endorse a candidate so that they can put our logo on their flyers. We get in the field, right? We knock on doors, we make phone calls, we host meet and greets. We make sure we donate, right? We make sure that if there's someone that we believe in, we want to make sure that they get across that finish line. And then on the other side, once they're there, we hold them accountable, right? We hold meetings with them. Are you doing what you promised, right? Like, are we still here on the same path as far as what we expect from you and what you need to be doing for DC residents? And we like to have a seat at the table. So, we
Yeah,
make sure that we get in there early. So with 2026 rolling around, I think there are 7 seats that are up for election, either challenging seats in Ward 7. There's going to be the mayoral race. So there's going to be some interesting races going on, and we're going to make sure that we have eyes on them.
nice, nice. And what is the length of a term for a councilman?
I think it's 2 years. I
Yeah.
think in DC is 2 years for county council.
Do these folks like stay several terms, or do they?
The council's term limited, but the mayor seat is not.
Okay. And usually, what happens? Like, are this like a stepping stone to, like, I don't know, going for mayor, or maybe, I don't know, like, if you look at the past council people, are they just business people, or they're just regular folks who stayed a couple of terms and went back to regular life, or are they political sort of careerists?
Um, you know, I, most of them. what I do find and I like in DC is they're not looking for what's next, right?
Mm,
A lot of times, and again, like I mentioned, I represent in Prince George's County, Montgomery County. We'll see elected officials who don't even complete their term. They're there, and then they're on to the next accolade for them, the next, whatever they feel like C is going to boost
mm.
themselves up, and they haven't even completed the first job that they did, right? So,
Yeah, they just
um,
want to have a checkbox. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So they're just they already have their eyes on the next seat
Mm.
before they even completed their job in the first one. I don't see that in the DC Council often. Folks usually complete their terms, and when they are termed out, they tend to stay in some type of agency or local government or department which impacts DC residents. So they're always around, right? It's not like they're just like, oh, kick back and do something completely. Wherever, whatever committee that they're in, usually they try to stick around and
Yeah.
stay, still serve and do public service.
Okay, okay. So I'm just thinking, are they folks who see it as a jumping point to, I don't know, a nice lucrative job? Do you see that happening? Like a Congress, the bane of our existence right now, one of them is the congressperson is thinking about the long term of their career. So they become friends with a couple of industries, and then when they're done, they go and they get a consulting gig or a full-time job over there, making, maybe they sit on the board and whatever, something like that, right? So for them, that is part of the calculation in the decision making. Do you see any of that in the DC Council? I know you have
But, you
friends,
know,
so
right, don't have them attacking me
I
now.
don't, I don't, I don't want to put you in an awkward position.
No,
So
no, but the honest truth is I don't see it. At
okay,
the same time, we try to keep relationships with folks out, once they leave out of office, but we don't really keep tabs on them that often unless they come around the spaces that we're in.
yeah,
Right. Again, if they become a department head at one of the agencies and they're at the Department of Healthcare Finance or behavioral health services or somewhere around there that they happen to be in those same similar spaces. But other than that, I don't think that we keep too much tabs on them once they're out of office. We're really focused on, who's coming in next and making sure that, they're either gonna, get the baton passed to them or, start a new reign to make sure that, we're on the same page and building rapport with whoever's coming in next.
okay. Well, I have a lot of questions about, and I'll tell you why. Maybe we can do another episode, if you have time, sometime in the next few weeks, because I think you have a wealth of stuff of information and insights to share with us. But let me finish with this, which is, the 30 minutes have gone very fast. Which is, what inspired you to get involved in, organizing? Tell me your story.
Yeah, I was, a long time ago. I know I look kind of young, but it was a while ago. I'm from a kid from Springfield, Massachusetts, and you know, just was looking for an opportunity to kind of do something different and do something new. My uncle was running for county executive in Prince George's County and gave me the opportunity to come knock on some doors and make some phone calls. And I'm like, hey, I needed a job. I'm like, sure, I'll come over there, do that. And it was the first time that I heard him speak that really inspired me to pay attention to what's going on in local government. I think the passion that came from how much he loved the work he was doing and the impact that it had on his community,
Mm,
um, something clicked for me. And I never was too involved in politics and after that day I just want to learn everything. I became a sponge and I really realized the importance of knowing who your leaders were to providing spaces and platforms to make sure that your voices and your concerns were heard and that if you had an issue you couldn't just sit back and complain about it. You got to go do something about it, like you said
yeah.
earlier, right? You got to get out there and make sure that you're a part of change. So after that day, literally, it was just a shift in my mentality and in my behaviors that I decided that I wanted, and I come from a family of what I would call public service. My dad was an educator, my mom was a social worker. My grandfather was a war vet. So something I think it's something in me that was already there, and kind of I just needed that spark. um and then after that, and he was running unopposed at the time, I learned so much on that very first campaign, about county council, school board races, city of clerk, and things that I just was not privy to. I just wasn't paying attention. And that really inspired me to really get involved more and make sure that people who look like me knew that there was that opportunity there. Because if you would ask me, 20 years ago, if I would be doing political work, I'm like, no,
I
right?
don't think so.
Um, like
Yeah.
I would never guessed. But here I am. I worked on campaigns after that for 8 more years, at the local, state, and federal level. Started as a volunteer coordinator and ended up as a field director. So when I saw the opportunity to kind of shift things away from campaign, but still utilize some of my experience in politics, to serve, for this healthcare organization, 1199, who I was already very much familiar with through, again, working in campaigns. They were one of the most sought endorsements that we had because, again, like I said, we called them the purple people, because they were always outside in their purple shirts, and they would go to rallies and they would go to marches, and wherever whatever we needed them to do, they were always there. And it felt like I was working for, doing something that was purposeful, and had real impact on the community. So I love it here. I enjoy the work that I do, and yeah, I guess that's what got me into organizing.
Well, I mean, doing meaningful work is the best, you know,
Yeah.
with good pay. You know, I'm
Yeah,
saying,
well,
right?
pay is important.
Pay is important, right? But that combination, you can't beat it. If let's say you're doing a very meaningful job and you're comfortable, oh my God, right? I mean, even the wealthy people out there who are just like miserable lizards, right, would envy you,
Mm,
right? And so, so we have to go and solve that problem. To be honest with you, and like you said, you and I agree on this. Enough of the complaining and the whining and the moaning, right? Let's go and get up, and get your mug of coffee and go out and do things and meet people and organize and plan and strategize, because there's I mean, even though we are in a dire situation, there's still space for us to do things, and we need to
mhm,
do them. And so I'm really glad to have bumped into you. And trust me, I'm going to try very hard to build a good relationship with you, because I have a lot of respect for you and for your work. And also, I want to learn. I really want to learn, right? I want to learn because when you learn, you can act. And you can
yeah.
act the smart way as opposed to just wasting your time doing unimportant things. And so, last thing is,
Mhm.
um, in the next couple of weeks, give me something that you're working on, an event, or perhaps something that's for folks who are listening, we get a sense of the stuff that keeps you busy and excited.
Yeah. I mean, you missed the Medicaid celebration. That was the fun event. We do some fun
I,
stuff every now and then too, all right?
you did give
We
me the heads up, and I couldn't make it.
we gotta have a
I'm,
little
I'm gonna
fun
look
from
for the
time
next
to
party.
time.
What's the next party? What's the next? Yeah,
We're gonna set something up. We're gonna make something work. We don't have it lined up yet, but I'm gonna make sure that that
please,
that you
please.
stay that you stay in focus.
As you can see,
Um,
I'm a fan.
yeah, but right now there's a lot of moving parts. So on the 18th we have the No Kings rally, which we're
18th of
doing.
October. Okay.
Yep, October 18th. We're going to be over at the Washington Monument marching, to protest the federal occupation and the federal government shutdown, and just Trump in general, just pushing back against Medicaid cuts. We understand why the federal government was shut down. It has a lot to do with funding disbursements for healthcare and Affordable Care Act. So we're going to be there on the 18th, and that's kind of our national movement. There's going to be, I think there's 30 different cities who are doing a No Kings rally. So 1199 everywhere that we are in Florida, Jersey, New York, Massachusetts. We're going to be outside on the 18th, marching for the No Kings rally. I mentioned on the 22nd, we have our advocacy day, which we're going to be up at the city council building in DC, over at the Wilson building, to to fight to restore the DC Alliance. As of October 1st, eligibility requirements changed. So a lot of people were cut from coverage, probably don't even know it yet until they're probably going to need to go to their physician and they're going to let them know that they're no longer covered. Um, so we're pushing to fully fund and restore DC Alliance, DC Healthcare Alliance. Um, and then, like I said, we have the medical bill coming up. So we're having there's going to be a roundtable at the beginning of next month. We're going to sit down with all the agencies, DHS, Department of Healthcare Finance, Committee of Health, um, and really discuss this critical issue of these predatory practices that a lot of these hospitals are using, putting liens on people's properties and sending debt collectors off after folks for medical debt when if when we really should be insuring people. DC had one of the lowest uninsured rates in the nation. I think it was 4% of people were uninsured in DC because they had one of the highest federal matching Medicaid rates. But now with that being in jeopardy, we're going to see a increased amount of uninsured residents in DC who are going to need healthcare coverage. So, when federal government isn't working for us, we expect local government to combat that. And, we're going to hold the council accountable to ensure that they're putting their residents, their constituents first to ensure that they're covered in healthcare. And lastly, we have um, this isn't lastly. We have
I
there's a
know.
list.
Lastly, for this conversation.
Working on a lot here.
Yeah.
But I do want to mention, which kind of ties to the medical debt is what I mentioned about uncompensated care. So the DC law states that no less than 3% of operating expenses for hospitals under the certification of need states that you're supposed to use no less than 3% on charity care, uncompensated care. So people who are uninsured, if they come in and they need a service, they shouldn't be billed, right? I don't know how they select these people, but there's an amount of money that they're supposed to spend toward that. And not only are there bad actors who are not meeting that requirement, but those are also the same predatory facilities who are harassing people about medical debt when they should be looking at themselves and making sure that
Yeah.
they're abiding by the law of uncompensated care. So, we got a lot coming up. It's busy times, right?
Yep.
It's we're in critical times where we're facing this administration that devalues the working class and working families. So we have to we have to stay united and make sure that we're fighting back against it.
Yeah, yeah, wonderful. Jibran Eubanks, thank you so much for making the time. And as I said, I'm going to be greedy and I'm going to ask you to come and share some more thoughts, hopefully with next few weeks.
I'm coming back. I'm coming back.
Oh, that's good news. That's good news. Wonderful. Well, today is Friday, so it's tomorrow is the weekend. So have a great
Yes,
weekend.
sir.
Enjoy
You
it.
do the same. Thank
I think
you.
the weather is going to be hopefully
It's gonna be
cooperating.
a little chilly, but we'll be all right.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm okay
Fall
with
is
chili.
here.
I'm okay with chili as long as it's not like freezing, right?
Right, right.
That's okay. Wonderful. Thank you, Gibran. I
Thank
appreciate it.
you.